Hi everybody, welcome to our next mini lecture. This one is assessment tips and sampling strategy. In it we will take a brief look at some assessment tips that we've learned over the years and our extensive experience, and give a brief introduction to creating and using a sampling strategy. In both cases, we're making the assumption that your students are only going to have the last 5 to 10 minutes of the session to complete an assessment. First assessment tip, complete the assessment during class. You can actually give students an assessment to complete, like a survey, to complete later and turn in. And I think it's possible if you have a really good teaching collaboration going on. But otherwise, let's be honest, it's unlikely the students will complete it. Some of the other advantages of an in-class completion is the response rate is much, much higher. In our experience, it runs anywhere between 20 and 30% higher. And there's fewer outside factors, as in distractions, that can influence the student reaction to a course they've had. There are several disadvantages, of course, and one is it takes time from teaching. About 5 to 10 minutes out of a 50-minute one-shot session is a pretty big chunk of time. And it does give less time for students to think deeply about what it is they're responding to. The next tip, use a mix of rating, as in Likert scale, and comment items in your assessment instrument. The advantages, it gives a broader, richer range of data, and it captures more data. Students in a hurry will at least complete the quantitative items, and students with more time or with something to say will take the time to write some comments. There are some disadvantages. Mix of rating and comment items can be more time consuming in terms of data entry and complex data analysis, because not only are you doing quantitative analysis on the ratings, but you're also doing qualitative analysis on the comment items. And your comment quality and utility can be low, or at least mixed. So along with useful items, you might get things like, "It was great. We love the library. She was wonderful." Or things like, "I'm tired. I'm hungry. I've seen this a million times before. Why am I here?" So just be ready for it. When you're doing an assessment, there's no need for you to analyze every single one of your assessment instruments. You can instead take a sample. And a sampling strategy involves two aspects, the actual sample size and the sample representativeness. The sample size should be large enough to produce statistically meaningful results, yet small enough to still be manageable. We recommend, based on our experience, a minimum of 10% of the target population. That is, the group being studied, for example, first-year undergraduates. Sample representative means that the sample you do draw reflects the range and variation within the target population or the group you are studying. To give you an idea of how this would work, here's a hypothetical sampling example. Let's assume that the population, the target population that you're interested in, is 10 sections of English composition, each with nominally 20 students per section, which should give you a pool of about 200 students, assuming everybody shows up. Let's also assume that 80% of the students that do show up complete a feedback form, which should give you about 160 forms to analyze. Now, if you use a sample size of 10%, that reduces 160 to just 16. And if you further use a sample representativeness, you can take those 16 and make them more representative of the entire population. And here's just one way of doing it. There's a number of ways of doing it, but here's one I suggest. Because you have 10 sections, draw the first 10 forms randomly, one form from each of the sections. Then for the final 6 forms, simply randomly select one form from any 6 of the 10 sections, but no more than one from each section. That'll give you a total of 16 forms with a really good sample size and representativeness.